Welcome to this explainer. Today, we're unpacking a fascinating piece of history that is, honestly, an absolute masterclass in strategy. We're going to look at how a monumental, completely invincible alliance was targeted for a takeover. And the crazy part? Not a single drop of blood was shed. It was all done through a highly calculated psychological trap. Let's get right into how you dismantle an unconquerable enemy using literally nothing but their own internal psychology against them.
So how exactly do you conquer the world without drawing a single sword? Well, we're going to dive right into that by analyzing a pivotal, closed-door strategy session that shifted the course of history from traditional warfare to asymmetric tactics. Whether you're studying military history, dealing with fierce office politics, or just looking at modern business strategies, this text is the ultimate blueprint. It shows you exactly how to rewrite the rules of engagement when you realize, hey, I absolutely cannot win a physical fight here. It's a brilliant study in recognizing your own limitations and entirely changing the game.
O Duryodhana, thou shouldest not be jealous of Yudhishthira. That opening line, spoken by the brilliant and incredibly calculating Sakuni, drops us right into a super high-stakes conversation. He's talking to his ambitious, deeply envious nephew, Duryodhana. Now, Duryodhana is just consumed by jealousy over the massive success of his rivals, the Pandavas, who are led by Yudhishthira. But Sakuni, stepping into the role of the ultimate strategic advisor, instantly shuts down this emotional reaction. He needs his nephew thinking clearly, not emotionally, if they're actually going to pull this off.
So, to understand this strategy, we first have to look at Section 1, the problem, which is Duryodhana's unfounded jealousy.
Here is the core problem driving this whole plot. Sakuni bluntly invalidates Duryodhana's envy. He points out, very logically, that the Pandavas are just enjoying what they actually deserve. They earned it through good fortune and some seriously smart strategic moves. They escaped countless assassination machinations, many of which Duryodhana orchestrated himself, by the way, by sheer luck. They secured incredibly powerful allies through marriage, obtaining Draupadi as a wife, which brought in Drupada, his sons, and the wildly formidable Vasudeva. And on top of all that, they inherited their paternal kingdom share and grew it through their own sheer energy. Sakuni is basically telling him, look, they earned it, stop whining and start thinking.
And then there's the ultimate arsenal. What's truly overwhelming here is the absolute magnitude of the weapons Dhananjaya, who you might also know as Arjuna, has acquired. Sakuni reminds Duryodhana that Arjuna gratified Hastinasana and got his hands on the legendary Gandiva bow, a pair of totally inexhaustible quivers, and actual celestial weapons. With that kind of crazy firepower and his own physical strength, Arjuna has brought the kings of the world under his sway. Sakuni is forcing Duryodhana to face the hard facts here. The enemy's military capabilities are completely off the charts.
And if that wasn't bad enough, Duryodhana isn't just fighting regular men. Sakuni recounts how Arjuna saved the Asura Maya from a huge fire. Out of deep gratitude, this incredibly powerful architect used his immense skill to build the Pandavas a genuinely magnificent assembly house. But wait, it gets better. It wasn't just built by him, it's actively supported by these grim, terrifying Rakshasas called Kinkaras. Sakuni is really piling on the evidence here, breaking down Duryodhana's ego by making him realize, you aren't just fighting an army, you're fighting literal demons.
Which brings us to Section 2, the agitation. Let's take a really hard look at the concept of this invincible enemy.
Let's actually compare the true strength of both sides to see how this builds up. Sakuni lists out Duryodhana's allies just to assure him he's not entirely alone. Duryodhana has his obedient brothers, the great warrior Drona, Karna, Gautama, Sakuni himself, and Samadati. Hearing this, Duryodhana gets this quick burst of false confidence. He's thinking, yeah, with these guys, I can absolutely conquer the Pandavas and take all their wealth. But when you actually weigh these two factions side by side visually, it becomes blindingly obvious why traditional warfare is a terrible, terrible idea. The Pandavas just have way too much firepower.
Sakuni makes it absolutely terrifyingly clear. He tells his nephew point blank that these men cannot be vanquished in battle by even the Celestials. Why? Well, because they're great warriors, they wield the absolute largest bows, they are incredibly accomplished in weaponry, and they literally delight in battle. So Sakuni is just entirely slamming the door shut on the idea of a physical war.
Now Duryodhana is completely backed into a corner. His grand military ambitions have just been logically crushed by his own advisor. Desperately, he asks Sakuni, is there any way at all, to vanquish Yudhishthira without putting his friends and his illustrious men in danger? He wants a victory for sure, he wants the wealth, but he finally realizes that a direct assault means total annihilation. So how exactly do you defeat the invincible?
The answer Sakuni gives is a total masterclass in exploiting vulnerabilities. He says, you don't fight them on the battlefield. It's that simple. If you can't beat them on the battlefield, you just change the battlefield entirely. You refuse to play their game, where they hold all the celestial weapons and demonic architects, and instead, you force them to play your game, on your turf under your exact rules.
Let's move to the final piece of this explainer. Section 3, the solution. Let's see how Sakuni builds this ultimate, devastating trap, the devious dice strategy. Sakuni profiles King Yudhishthira like a tragic mark in a long con. He exposes a highly specific, fatal flaw in the king's psychology. First, Yudhishthira is very fond of dice play, which means he can be easily lured to the table. Second, despite loving the game, he actually doesn't know how to play. That is a dangerously bad combination. He is practically guaranteed to lose against a true expert. And third, and this is the absolute kicker, he is able to refuse a challenge. His strict honor and regal pride literally compel him to accept the trap. Sakuni has found the exact, perfect pressure points to bring down an invincible king.
So here is the brilliant, crucial point of Sakuni's counterplay. He decides to weaponize his own unmatched skill. He turns a mundane pair of dice into a tool far deadlier than any celestial weapon. Sakuni proudly declares that he has no equal in dice play on Earth, not even in the 3 worlds. The plan is so simple yet totally lethal. Challenge Yudhishthira to a game of dice. Sakuni promises that by using his skills, he's going to win Yudhishthira's entire kingdom and all his splendid prosperity for Duryodhana, and he'll do it without a single casualty. It is the absolute perfect asymmetric counterattack.
Yet, despite the sheer brilliance of this loophole, Duryodhana shows a sudden flash of cowardice. The text reveals that Sakuni tells Duryodhana, hey, go present this plan to your father, King Dhritarashtra. But Duryodhana immediately deflects. He asks his uncle Sakuni to pitch this devious plot to the chief of the Kurus instead, admitting, I shall not be able to do so. Really think about that for a second. The great conqueror, the guy who just moments ago wanted to wage war against the whole world, is too intimidated to even propose this psychological trap to his own father.
And so we are left hanging right on the precipice of tragedy. The trap is fully set. An enemy that could not be defeated by massive armies, celestial weapons, or even demonic forces is about to be systematically dismantled at a gambling table. It leaves us with a profound question to ponder long after this explainer ends. What happens to an invincible empire when its own strict adherence to honor and protocol becomes its single greatest vulnerability? Thank you so much for joining me to explore this incredible strategic text. Keep questioning the battlefield, and I'll see you in the next explainer.